Good evening from India. I welcome you all today. My name is Samidha Jain. I am a researcher at Indic Researchers Forum. I will be your host for today's dialogue. Indic Researchers Forum is a security think tank focusing on issues pertaining to national security, defense, and geopolitics through a civilizational perspective. I'm happy to share that today we are celebrating 3 years of Indic Researchers Forum. To mark this special day, today we are launching our flagship project, the Pashtun Security Dialogue. This is an initiative which aims to promote dialogue and research on the security issues confronting the Pashtun society across the Durand line. The primary objective of this initiative is to conduct an in depth analysis of the role played by various state and non state actors, which has led to terrorism, conflicts, and human rights abuse in the region. The security dialogue also seeks to provide a platform to the important stakeholders, including human rights activists, global security experts, academians, lawyers, and journalists. With this, I would like to introduce the eminent speakers for today's session. First, we have Ms. Levsa Bayankhail, who is currently serving as the General Secretary of Pashtun Tahafuz Movement Denmark. She is also a member of PTM Europe Advocacy Committee and has been recently appointed as the convener of Pashtun Security Dialogue. Ma'am will chair the session today. Next, we have Shri Tilak Devasher. Tilak sir is the author of 4 widely acclaimed books on Pakistan, with the latest being on Pashtuns. He is currently a member of National Security Advisory Board and had served as Special Secretary at Cabinet Secretariat, Government of India. Our third speaker is Mr. Fazal ur Rehman Afridi. Mr. Afridi is the head of PTM Committee on International Advocacy and Foreign Affairs. Apart from this, he is the president of Paris-based think tank Khyber Institute of Research and Strategic Studies and also principal representative at United Nations. Finally, we have Mr. Ullah Hamdard as a fourth speaker. Mr. Hamdard is a journalist, human rights activist, and researcher from Pakistan. He's currently based in United Kingdom. He is a lecturer in journalism and mass communication and currently pursuing his PhD in communication media and cultural studies at Solent University, UK. Before I hand over the floor to Levsa ma'am, I request the audience to kindly turn off their microphone and write their questions in the chat box. They will be taken up during the Q&A session. Ma'am, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Samidha, for the kind introduction, and thank you to Indic Researcher Forum for allowing me to moderate this very important discussion. I'm honored to be in the company of such a esteemed panel. To begin with, I'm extremely happy to be part of the Pashtun Security Dialogue. This is an initiative of Indic Researcher Forum, which seeks to provide a platform to all the geopolitical thinkers, academicians, human rights activists, and security experts to deliberate on the security challenges confronting the Pashtun society. I'm thankful to my friend Arya for giving me the opportunity to take charge of this initiative as convener, and I'm hopeful that through this initiative we will also be able to reignite the historical civilizational links between the Pashtuns and Indians. The teachings of Bachha Khan Baba, Gandhiji, and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose played an extremely important role during our collective freedom struggle against the Britisher. However, Bachha Khan Baba was pained by the betrayal of Indian Congress leadership for abandoning us to the authoritarian regime of Punjab at the time of partition. The legacy of the partition for Pashtun is still the same, even today, where we are subjected to silent genocide by the Pakistani army. The world power are mute spectator for their geopolitical interests, which have cost us our home lives. The Pakistani regime has been successful in setting the narrative where Pashtun have been labeled as extremists and terrorists who do not want peace or development. But in reality, we all know that ye jo dahshatgardi hai, iske piche wardi hai, which are the Pakistani army generals and the entire establishment. Today, as a proud member of Pashtun Tahafuz movement, I see hope in PTM, which is carrying the legacy of Baja Khan Baba in standing up against the real terrorists of our region. Throughout our peaceful advocacy, we appeal to civil society around the world. Conclude my opening remarks with this, as I want to give as much time to our eminent speakers. I will first invite Mr. Tilak Devasher. Mr. Tilak is a Pakistani expert and has written 4 books on Pakistan, with his latest one being on Pashtun. It is indeed an honor to have you, sir. I have been introduced to your writings on the on Pakistan by Yashas. Your unbiased assessment is something we all look up to. It has helped us to assess the situation better, sir. We will be speaking. You will be speaking on. Sir will be speaking on the Pakistan-Afghanistan relations since 1947. Sir, it's over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to on this Pashtun security dialogue, a subject that's pretty very close to me since I've written a whole book on the Pashtuns. And while researching it and while studying the Pashtuns, I find that they are a very misunderstood community. It's very easy to come to some very cursory conclusions without going into the depth of Pashtun history, and Pashtun civilization, and Pashtun ethos. And that was my motivation in trying to understand and to project to the world what the Pashtuns are all about, and what are they like. So let me start. I'll be talking about uh, the relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Actually, though we are using the word Afghanistan, it is basically an interaction between Pakistan and the Pashtuns since 1947, since that is the dominant thread in the relationship between the two countries. Now, the one thing that strikes you, that if you take an overview of Pak-Afghan relations since 1947, the one single factor that impacts the relationship is Pakistan's insecurity about the 1893 Durand Line that had demarcated spheres of influence between British India and Afghanistan. The line had divided the common Pashtun population living on both sides. In 1949, Afghanistan formally repudiated any formal status for the Durand Line in a Lower Jirga. And since then, no Afghan government, whether it was a monarchy, republic, Mujahideen, or the Taliban, or the governments of President Karzai, have accepted the border, and every government has hoped to re-annex the territories east of the border, extending up to the Indus. These Pashtun territories had been lost to the Sikhs in 1834 and inherited by Pakistan via the British. On its part, Pakistan treats the Durand Line as a settled international border, but it has always been insecure about the lack of its acceptance by Afghanistan. Pakistan's efforts have therefore been geared to get an Afghan government to accept the Durand Line as an international border. For example, according to the former Taliban ambassador to Pakistan, Mullah Abdul Salam Zaif, Pakistan tried 3 times to formalize the border during the Taliban rule of 1996-2001, but repeatedly it received a negative response. Given its insecurity, Pakistan's policy has been to ensure a weak and dependent government in Kabul. Such a government would be the best guarantee against any revanchist posture, while a strong and independent Afghan government could try and recover the lost Pashtun territories, as for example under Daud Khan, Afghanistan did raise the issue of Pashtunistan on several occasions. A term frequently used in Pakistan is strategic depth to describe the motivation of its policy towards Afghanistan. Now, this concept was based on the reality that several of Pakistan's population centers were close to the border with India. Coupled with the flat terrain, It provided a scary scenario in military terms for the Pak leadership. Hence, geographical space or depth was sought in Afghanistan. For these complex and interrelated reasons, Pakistan has followed a forward policy in Afghanistan since the time of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. The forward policy has been operationalized by leveraging its frontline status during superpower interventions in Afghanistan. Thus, Pakistan's support for the insurgency in Afghanistan, sorry, got a bit of a cough. So, Pakistan's support for the insurgency in Afghanistan began in 1973-74 under Bhutto, years before the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. Afghan dissident leaders like Burhanuddin Rabbani and Gulbuddin Hekmatyar, who had escaped from Pakistan in 1974 after Daud Khan's coup, came into contact with Pakistan authorities. They were trained and sent back into Afghanistan to instigate a insurgency. They were caught and the insurgencies were defeated. It was the Soviet intervention in Afghanistan in December 79 that was God sent for Pakistan and personally for Ziaul Haq. Zia knew that the US would have no option but to provide massive assistance to Pakistan to bleed their Cold War rival. However, by 1988, the Soviets were ready to quit Afghanistan. The US had achieved its objectives, and Pakistan had a deep sense of betrayal when, after the Soviet withdrawal, the US not only turned its back on Afghanistan, leaving Pakistan holding the fallout of jihad, but imposed sanctions for its nuclear weapons program. Worse, the Mujahideen, the Peshawar 7, could not agree on an amicable power sharing agreement, and the result was a devastating civil war. Hekmatyar, who was Pakistan's favorite, was unable to take Kabul militarily. In such a situation, Pakistan decided to back the Taliban, who were a local phenomena in Kandahar. Pakistan's support transformed the group into a fighting force that captured Kabul in 1996. During the Taliban regime of 1996 to 2001, Pakistan came to view Afghanistan as its backyard. For example, in May 2000, Musharraf publicly attested to Pakistan's support, and he said, and I quote, Afghanistan's majority ethnic Pashtuns have to be on our side. This is our national interest. The Taliban cannot be alienated by Pakistan. They have a national security interest there. Unquote. While Pakistan's proxies, the Taliban, were well ensconced in Afghanistan, 9/11 changed the course of history. With the Taliban refusing to hand over Osama bin Laden, the US launched air attacks on Taliban stronghold. And by the end of 2001, the Taliban government had collapsed. Al Qaeda and Taliban leadership found refuge in Pakistan's Fatah and Balochistan, while the rank and file went back to their homes in Afghanistan. As a result, Fatah became a base camp for the Al Qaeda and the Taliban, from where they recruited, trained, and launched terrorist attacks on US forces in Afghanistan. For 20 years, 2001 2021, Pakistan covertly supported the Taliban to recapture Kabul, and when they did in August 21, they were rejoicing in Pakistan. It was seen as a crowning achievement of Pakistan's 2-decade long covert support to the Taliban, in spite of being part of the US war on terror. The then Prime Minister Imran Khan claimed that the Afghans had broken the shackles of slavery, whatever that was supposed to be. Why was this jubilation? For the last 2 decades, Pakistan had envisioned an endgame for Afghanistan ruled by the Taliban because it was seen as enhancing Pakistan's security. Such a government would ensure, first, that India did not get any space in Afghanistan, second, the Taliban would recognize the Durand Line, and third, they would restrain, if not retard, the offensive capabilities of the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. 3 years later, the jubilation has turned to ashes, and Pakistan's policy is torn to shreds. Rather than its objectives being met, Pakistan's security has been severely compromised. Thus, India is back in Kabul at the request of the Taliban, who are keen that India restart infrastructure projects. Second, the Taliban have not recognized the Durand Line and are unlikely to do so. And finally, The Taliban have declined to act against the TTP and instead have only facilitated talks between the outfit and Pakistan. The talks on the ceasefire broke down in November 22, and the TTP has carried out attacks in several parts of Pakistan. Clearly, the euphoria at the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan was premature and unwarranted. So, what went wrong? Why have relations between the two so called brotherly neighbors nosedived? Why have there been clashes between the Taliban and Pak security forces? And what is the prognosis? The main issue that has bedeviled relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan since the Taliban takeover is that Pakistan forgot that the Afghans are first and foremost nationalists and would pursue their own agenda rather than Pakistan's agenda or anyone else's agenda for that matter. Symptomatic of this have been the activities of the TTP. Pakistan assumed that a grateful Taliban would act against the TTP. It did not factor in, rather miscalculated, that the Taliban regime had no incentive to crack down on the TTP. First, the links between the Taliban and TTP are deep and based on ideological precepts and Pashtun. The TTP Amir is under the direct bet of the Taliban Supreme Leader Habibatullah Akhundzada. That is, he has pledged his loyalty. This provides the Taliban strategic and ideological depth into Pakistan, something that Islamabad had long sought in Afghanistan. Second, after the US intervention in Afghanistan in 2001, it was the tribal elements of the erstwhile Fatah that had sheltered the Taliban. Today, those elements are grouped under the TTP. Under Pashtun, the Afghan Taliban have an obligation to provide the TTP shelter in Afghanistan to return the favor. They would be considered begarat or without honor if they didn't, possibly the worst slur for a Pashtun. Third, there is also a practical reason. The Taliban would not like to antagonize their former brothers in arms, which they fear could trigger defection to the rival Islamic State and create splits within their own ranks. It will also endanger their ideological and ethnic affinity with people in Pakistan's border regions, who they have always fallen back upon. Finally, an increasingly suspicious Taliban regime also knows that it can use the TTP for bargaining leverage with Pakistan. In fact, the TTP is Taliban's dagger pointed at the throat of Pakistan. The Taliban have indicated that though they owed a debt of gratitude to Pakistan for its help, they would not accept any advice from anyone, including Pakistan, that went against their ideology, especially if it could threaten their internal cohesion or weaken their political base. For Taliban, Pakistan is no longer their only ally. With their exposure to the world for a period of 20 years, the Taliban have acquired political, diplomatic, and economic acumen. They have established close links with the governments of Russia, China, Qatar, Central Asian states, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. Moreover, Taliban leaders who had moved their families to Pakistan do not have very fond memories of the years of total dependence on Pakistan. Dozens of Taliban have talked about the years of deprivation and torture they suffered at the hands of the Pakistani intelligence. Sorry. Pakistan has no easy options. Another ceasefire and peace deal with the TTP will only embolden the outfit and allow it to further consolidate its position. Launching operations against the TTP inside Pakistan would be very difficult if sanctuaries continue to exist in Afghanistan. And in the absence of American drones that were previously employed to kill almost the entire top leadership of the group. The local population is also reluctant to vacate the area once again. Entering Afghanistan to target TTP camps is bound to attract a Taliban response and possibly lead to a war of attrition and increased terrorist activities, especially suicide bombings. Being unable or unwilling to militarily tackle the TTP, Pakistan has reacted by asking undocumented Afghans who had sought refuge in Pakistan to leave the country or risk imprisonment and deportation. A large number have already been sent out. Uh, Numbers vary, I'm not very sure the exact number, but this has not worked very well, and Pakistan has had to call it off, allowing those with proof of residence or POR cards to stay on for some more time. Other measures to pressurize the Taliban not to host the TTP include delaying the release of containers bound for Afghanistan and Karachi, introducing passports and visas at Chaman border instead of identity cards as before, and retracting from efforts to seek international recognition of the Taliban. The irony is that Afghans were once hailed by Pakistan as holy warriors, mujahideen, and praised for their critical role in driving the Soviets away. Today, however, Afghans living in Pakistan are portrayed as terrorists, drug peddlers, and criminals. To conclude, Afghanistan Pakistan relations are now precariously placed and disturbed to such an extent that fixing them would be very challenging. Far from easing, Pakistan's dilemma, that is basically a Pashtun dilemma, has become more acute in recent months. Pakistan has a problem both with the Afghan Taliban and the TTP. The concern for Pakistan is that while Taliban have challenged the Durand Line and hence Pakistan's territorial integrity, the TTP is seeking a reversal of the merger of former FATA and KPK province. Taken together, this potential Pashtun pincer from both sides of the Durand Line could mainstream the idea of a larger Pashtun inhabited area in case Pakistan fails to tackle the issue imaginatively. I'll close now and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Devasher, for your comprehensive overview of Pakistan-Afghanistan relations since the 1947. Your deep understanding of the complex dynamic between our region, especially Pakistan-Afghanistan, is invaluable context for the challenges we are facing today in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Afghanistan. Your unbiased approach is a source of strength for our movement, PTM. It's helping us to navigate the intricate political landscape. Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite my colleague, Fazal Rehman Afridi. Mr. Afridi is currently the head of PTM Committee on International Advocacy and Foreign Affairs. He will speak on the recent extrajudicial killing of prominent poet and member of PTM, Gilaman Wazir, who was in the plight of the Pashtun. Mr. Afridi, it's over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lefsa Bayankhail. It's been honor to be with such an august forum, especially Tilak Devasher, who is really a huge, big expert on the Pashtun issue. I would like to discuss Gilaman Wazir, who is not only a poet, but I will call him a freedom fighter, actually, because he is a he was a human rights activist and was actively fighting for the rights of the Pashtun people, and he was the first poet after Khushal Khatak, who has been fighting and raising, the aspirations of the Pashtun people through poetry. I would like to discuss the huge impact of the poetry of the Gilaman Wazir on the Pashtuns in the region. Not only Pashtuns living across the Durand Line in Pakistan, but on the other side of Afghanistan also, what we call from Amu Tarabasina. And his poetry resonates with the Pashtun people, with the hearts and minds of the people, you know. He captured the hearts and minds of the Pashtun nation. And he was having such a grip on the Pashtun history and the reason for the slavery and the subjugation of the Pashtun nation now living in Pakistan. It can be gauged from a couplet which says that the Pashtano pakatleam khamosh malako mula dasta sudumra gilamanyam chehad nalari, which means that there are two important factors due to which the Pashtun nation has been subjugated. One is Malak and another is Mullah. These two factors have been used by colonial powers like British and then now the Punjabi colonialist for the subjugation and slavery of the Pashtun people. So only this couplet, you know, resonates, you know, with the Pashtun nation. And it can clearly be gauged from the fact that he was having a great profound understanding of the history and subjugation of the Pashtun people. Another important factor, while he was in prison, the torturers or the Pakistani soldiers, they used to tell him that just, you know, tell us about, you know, your poetry and say some couplets of your poetry. So he was telling in an interview that I told them that my poetry is all against Pakistan. It's for the liberation of the Pashtun people, so it will not be good to your ears. But still, they forced him to recite some couplets, and immediately there was, after a few couplets, there was you know, there were some couplets which were speaking against Pakistan. So then they used to you know, beat him up after those couplets. So really he was a great you know, not only a revolutionary poet, but the fighter for the Pashtun people like Khushal Khan Khattak. His impact is really huge, not only on the self-determination of the Pashtun people, you can say the freedom, you know, the anchoring for the Pashtun nationalism. You know, he was a symbol of the Pashtun nationalism, and now there is so huge political mobilization, you know, across the Durand line in Larobar, Afghan people. And you can see that after his assassination, there were huge protests all around the world and funeral prayers, which united, you know, the Pashtun Afghan nation. And he was a kind of, you know, a symbol of resistance against the oppression of the Punjabi regime. He was promoting the unity of the Pashtun people. And there is a huge impact also on the Pashtun literature. You know, his poetry, you know, awakened the nationalism, the freedom, the right to self-determination in the Pashtun people. And I think the Pashtun people will be no more like before, that living for the last 77 years in Pakistan. So I think it will have a huge change in the minds of the Pashtun people. And hopefully one day, due to his poetry, due to his activism, I think Pashtun people will achieve their freedom from oppression and tyranny of the Punjabi colonial power. Now, I would like to just inform you how he was, extrajudicially killed by the state of Pakistan. On July 7, 2024, this year, in a pre-planned attack in a coffee shop of federal capital Islamabad, Gilaman Wazir was attacked by 4 known and 4 unknown masked individuals in broad daylight. One of the attackers hit him on the back of his head with a rod with such a precision that Mr. Wazir fell immediately on ground unconscious. Azad Wazir, the mastermind of the assassination, was present there holding a pistol with his fingers on the trigger to kill Mr. Wazir in case the others fail. The masked individuals quickly dispersed from the scene of the murder without any problem. I'm talking about the Pakistani capital. It was not in Waziristan, it was not in Fata, where there's law and order situation, where there's no police. Mr. Wazir was declared brain dead by the doctors immediately after his arrival at PIMS Hospital. And on July 10, 2024, he succumbed to his wounds after remaining in coma for 4 days. The modus operandi was similar to the previous fatal attacks on PTM leaders and supporters like Arman Loni, Sardar Arif Wazir, Senator Osman Kakar, and SSP Tahir Dawar. The suspicion of the government involvement in this further increased when one of the accomplices in the assassination was allowed to leave the country despite the fact that being accused of involvement in the assassination of Gilaman Wazir. So it clearly indicates that the government was involved in this extrajudicial killing. And it is pertinent to note that Gilaman Wazir's assassination is not an isolated case. We have witnessed a phenomenal increase in extrajudicial killings in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in the last 6 years, with more than 600 targeted extrajudicial killings both by the state and its proxies. The only crime of Gilaman Wazir was raising his voice for the basic fundamental rights of the Pashtun ethnic minority in Pakistan, which is a systematic target of oppression and tyranny of the state of Pakistan. Earlier, he was forcibly disappeared by Pakistani military secret services on 7 July 2023 from Peshawar International Airport and was kept in personal prison of Corps Commander Peshawar for more than 7 months until produced before the courts of Pakistan. Gilaman was held in arbitrary detention and enforced disappearance and allegedly tortured in custody by Pakistani military and its secret services for 8 months before being released in January this year. We urge the international community and the United Nations, when he was we sent letters to different organizations. When he was arrested in Bahrain, and then he was deported from Bahrain by the red warrants of Interpol, which were given to Bahrain by Pakistan, and we raised concerns that he will be tortured. But still he was deported to Pakistan, and he was tortured in custody when he returned to Pakistan. So his enforced disappearance and his multiple arrests on false charges, and at the end of his extrajudicial killing, he passed through, a real ordeal, a real difficult situation by the state of Pakistan, but he didn't, surrendered to these threats and intimidation by the state of Pakistan and torture, and he continued his work. I would like to tell you that during custody, Gilaman Wazir was forced to read written statements against, Pashtun Tahafuz movement in front of the camera, which can clearly be seen that it was taken under duress after long physical and mental torture. The level of the torture can be gauged from the fact that dogs were let loose on him, who bit him on his legs. He was beaten up with fists and kicked routinely in custody. He was thrown before military vehicles to be killed like an accident-like situation. He was tightly changed during the custody, which caused severe injuries to his hands and legs. He was stripped of his clothes in freezing temperatures. The trained torturers and military personnel constantly threatened him to be shot and killed. He was tortured mentally and physically by keeping him awake for long hours. He was being held in poor, unhealthy, and unhygienic condition with inhuman physical inspections and food lacking in nutrients. He was constantly threatened by personnel of military secret services while in prison. Other detainees, as young as 11 years old boys, were tortured extremely in front of him to make him afraid. 3 persons belonging to his own village, arrested and detained along with him, were extrajudicially killed by Pakistan Army personnel in front of him. Despite his enforced disappearance, torture, and harassment and intimidation, Gilaman Wazir remained steadfast in exposing the state-sponsored terrorism, the gross human rights violations, and the exploitation of the natural resources of Pashtun ethnic minority by Pakistan. So this was all about his custody and in torture. What the Pashtun protection movement has been doing to expose the gross human rights violations committed by the state of Pakistan. We are keeping a very close eye on all these human rights violations, especially enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, arbitrary detention, and tortures. And we are keeping informed the international community, especially the United Nations, about these violations. We have constantly been writing letters, as Lefsa Bayankhail is aware of it, who is a member of our International Advocacy and Foreign Affairs Committee, to not only to the United Nations, but important countries of the world, like the United States, United Kingdom, and the European Union. And several communications about these torture, extrajudicial killings, and enforced disappearances have been sent by the United Nations to the government of Pakistan. But you will be astonished to know that they don't have any response regarding these grave human rights violations. The government is silent. So that's how, which shows that how can a state be legitimate in the eyes of the international community and the United Nations when it's unable to explain, to the international community and the United Nations the atrocities it is committing on the Pashtun ethnic minority in Pakistan. Not only Pashtun ethnic minority, but other ethnic minorities like Baloch, Sindhis, and Kashmiris are also suffering, the same oppression and tyranny at the hands of Pakistan. So now the situation is different. The Pashtun people are vigilant. Pashtun people are more aware of their rights, and they are prepared for any eventuality in case in case of balkanization of Pakistan, because the situation is very complex now in Pakistan. It's already economically bankrupt state, politically divided, and ethnically, all the important ethnic minorities are not happy to live in this country. So we hope that our neighboring countries, especially India, an emerging superpower, an important power in the region, I think it should keep a very vigilant eye on the situation in Pakistan, because at any time there can be, a situation which will get out of control, and it will have a huge impact on the neighboring countries in the region. Thank you very much, Lefsa Bayankhail. I'll finish my speech here, and I'm there to answer the questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Afridi, for shedding the light on the extradition killing of our comrades, and especially Gilaman Wazir, and the plight of our people. The story of Gilaman Wazir is a painful reminder for the ongoing violence against our people since the creation of Pakistan. And your dedication to international advocacy is crucial in ensuring that these atrocities do not go unnoticed. And we too will continue to work together in demanding justice and accountability. Now, we will go with Zia Hamdard, who is a journalist, who is Pashtun and journalist, I would like to begin with, and a researcher and human rights activist from, I would not say Pakistan, I would say Pakhtunkhwa, because we have never accepted Durian line. So he's writing his thesis on the role of social media in circumventing the state censorship and political activism, a case study of the Pashtun Tahafuz movement. He will speak on the right of the Pashtun and Bachha legacy, understanding the Pashtun Tahafuz movement. So over to you, Mr. Hamdard. Mike Lasky, Mike. Please open your mic, Mr. Hamdard. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you. Yeah, I just wanted to share the screen. Thank you very much, Lefsa, and thank you, Sir Tilak, and all the audience. My name is Zia, and I'm a PhD scholar at PhD fellow at Solent University, United Kingdom. And recently, I've written my thesis, PhD thesis on digital media and political mobilization. And I've taken the study of the case of Pashtun Tahafuz movement. So whatever I'm presenting is not my personal opinion. I don't represent PTM because I'm not any office bearer of the PTM, but as a researcher, it's my topic. So that's why whatever I have studied and whatever I have thoroughly investigated during last 5 years. So that's what I am presenting, a few glimpses of it in the context of today's topic. So PTM or the Pashtun Tahafuz movement I think Okay, so before going to PTM, let's introduce the Pashtuns. I think the whole world knows about the Pashtuns because they are in the media since last few decades, and a lot of books and a lot of propaganda material is already there. Uh, they have been under this profiling since the British came into this region. They have been writing books on the Pashtuns, and they have been presenting them as someone like warriors or someone, kind of stupidly courageous people who were fighting the British. So this is a history of Pashtun resistance against the British. And since then, they have been writing it because of that colonial legacy. We see the state of Pakistan have been presenting them uh, in a very negative manner. And after 9/11, there was a whole different discourse against Pashtuns. So everything added up to the problem of the Pashtun profiling. So who are Pashtuns? Basically, I'm simply introducing them. I don't think they need an introduction, but still, Pashtuns living across the Durand line in northwest Pakistan or southern and eastern Afghanistan is the 26th largest ethnic group in the world, the second largest majority in Pakistan, whereas they are the largest ethnic group in Afghanistan from 40 to 60%, where they are the dominant ethno-linguistic group since last 300 years. The number of Pashtun tribes and clans is estimated between 300 to over 4,000. They are also the world's largest segmentary lineage ethnic group. The Pashtuns' worldwide population is estimated to be 65 million, which is almost equivalent to the population of UK, Germany, or France. They are 18.24% in Pakistan, according to the UN Population Division. Pashtuns speak Pashto language, which is an Eastern Iranian language belonging to the Indo-Iranian family. Pashtuns are referred to as the tribes called Paktas. They fought the Battle of 10 Kings in the Rig Vedas, a text of Sanskrit hymns dated back to 1500 BCE. Pashtuns trace their civilization back to 5,000 years. However, this claim is contested. Despite the contested claims of thousands of years of civilization, their civilization is as old as the rivers of Oxus and Indus, the mountains of Hindu Kush and Suleiman, the statue of Buddha in Bamyan, Afghanistan, and the Buddhist archaeological remains in Swat, Takhtbai, and Hunt in Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan. Pashtun have established states, princely states, dynasties, and empires in the Central, Western, and South Asia. Ahmad Shah Durrani, or Abdali, is credited with the building of the first ever Pashtun homeland in the world. The Durrani Empire, for the first time, brought all Pashtuns under one umbrella and political center. The Pashtun diaspora. So the colonization of Indian subcontinent, the Anglo-Afghan wars from 1839 to 1842, then 1878 to 1880, the division of Pashtun lands by the British colonialists through the demarcation of Durand Line, the creation of a buffer zone known as the Federally Administered Tribal Areas, or FATA, formation of NWFP in 1901, the partition of India and annexing the Pashtun lands with Pakistan in 1947, the Soviet-American War in Afghanistan, Pakistan, not only result in a decline of Pashtun dominance in the world in regional politics, but also in the creation of a large diasporic Pashtun community. Today, a large population of Pashtun immigrants also live in the United States, Canada, Europe, and Middle East. According to the US Census Bureau 2010, the Pashtun or Afghan immigrants in the United States are estimated to be 238,554. The largest Afghan population are based in New York, Virginia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Fremont, California. In Canada, there are 60,590 Pashtuns as per 2019 census. The estimated Pashtuns population in Britain is around 200,000, the largest Pashtun diaspora community in Europe, while as of 2021 census, 48,000 people identified Pashto as their first language. Germany has 150,000 Pashtuns. Australia has 81,000 Pashtuns, while Russia has 19,800 Pashtuns. In India, there are 260, 577 Pashtuns, while the population of non-Pashtun speaking Pashtun is estimated to be more than 3.2 million. After the fall of Kabul in August 2021, approximately 3.6 million Afghans have fled the country. The Pashtun question, or the case of Pashtuns. Pashtuns are the world's largest ethnic group who share common language, ethnicity, culture, religion, spreading of an area of 100,000 square miles between Oxus and Indus, staying divided by the British era colony, with which Sir Tilak, I have actually taken this paragraph from Sir Tilak's book, The Pashtun, The Contested History, which he already explained. So the lands of Pashtuns have been invaded by Aryans, the Greeks, the Sakas, the Kushans, the Huns, the Arabs, the Mongols, the Turks, the Mughals, the British, the Soviet, and the US. Everyone came and left behind an abyss. They all came here due to their geographical and geostrategic importance, not for these resources. So yeah, actually we are being told is we are being labeled as the graveyard of empires, but actually it was the people who are coming and are taking us. Pashtuns have been very much notorious in the media and in the academic world, that they are labeled as they're someone like, we see a lot of propaganda material coming up from every nook and corner, but the Pashtuns have been attacked from the outside more than they have been during their empire outside the world. So in the northwest of Pakistan, the Pashtuns throughout the history have been shaped by their geographical proximity to Kabul and their connection to the British India and the West. The dispersion of Pashtun community and their movement across Durand Line helped them rebel against the British, which was turned into a buffer zone between Russia and Britain. The Britain led 42 military expeditions between 1849 and 1890 against the Pashtun rebellion. In 1983, the British was able to draw the Durand Line when Sir Mortimer draw the Durand Line in 1901. The British integrated the areas of east of Durand Line in the Northwest Frontier Province, or NWFP, and adopted the policy of conciliation and control along with huge military deployment. The British Army reconciled and they recruited some 700,000 and 500 Pashtuns into the Indian Army by 1915 and engaged with Pashtuns through Maliks, the political agents, and the frontier crimes regulation. The British neglected the Pashtuns, their language, while focused more and other rights, while they focused more on India. So there emerges the frontier Gandhi, or the great leader Bachha Khan. So the leader of Pashtun, Abdul Ghaffar Khan, also known as Bachha Khan, he started his political movement using Pashto language as a symbol of identity, and his political leaning and idea of non-violence brought him closer to Gandhi. When the idea of partition became an eventuality, Bachha Khan demanded the establishment of Pashtunistan. Though this demand was not very clear during the affiliation with the Indian National Congress. Probably he needed a separate and autonomous state within the British India when he was fighting for the freedom of British India against colonialism alongside Gandhi and Nehru and the Congress. So Pashtun was thrown to the walls when Congress accepted the partition plan. On June 3, 1947, as Bachha Khan told the cabinet of Indian National Congress, or Nehru, that you have thrown us to the walls. And that point was proved by the Barbara massacre on 12 August 1948. It proved his point when Pashtuns were killed. 600 Pashtuns were killed by the Pakistan, and the Congress government of Bachha Khan's brother was overthrown by the Muslim League, and Qayyum Khan was replaced. Then the story continues, and another turn that actually destroys the sovereignty and the state and the very social fabric of Pashtuns across the Durand Line, both in Pakhtunkhwa and in Afghanistan, was the proxy war that was imposed by the Western allies and managed by the Pakistan and the whole Arab world and the NATO allies, or the Western allies. So in December 78, the Soviet troops enter Afghanistan, and they stay till 1988. And those 10 years or in a decade, what changed? So the Western world, led by the America, launched a historical jihad project. So they brought actually these militants from Chechen, Uzbek, Tajik, Arabs, from Osama bin Laden to East Turkmenistan movement. All these people were flooded into the Afghan region across the Durand line. The United States started publishing the jihadi literature uh, in the textbooks containing violent images and militant teachings for Afghans at the University of Nebraska Center for Afghan Studies by spending 51 million. Now you can imagine what happened to Pashtuns. 51 million pounds dollars have been spent, during the 80s and early 90s just to brainwash the Afghans and recruit these people from around the world. And they have changed the syllabus. They have changed the syllabus, and they were making movies like Rambo 3 or The Line of Desert. The CIA was sponsoring those movies, and they were actually trying to recruit and arm Pashtuns so they could fight, against the Russians. A similar center was also established in Peshawar, Pakistan, where militant literature was published for Afghan kids. We still have some in Peshawar. So this is how the very fabric and politics and everything was changed for Pashtun. In 1982, the United States was providing nearly 3 billion in covert aid to Mujahideen, more than combined covert operation of the CIA. And the Charlie Wilson, did he manipulated the Congress, and he gave the Mujahideen, or these freedom fighters, to which, uh, out of love, the Washington Post called them Muj. So they gave them 700 million per year in the military assistance. And they gave them the Olicon anti-aircraft missiles, and they also gave them the Stinger missiles, which resulted in the collapse of Soviet Union and the Afghan state, the society, and then extremists took over the Pashtun lands till 9/11 happens. And after the fall of Soviet Union, the jihadi factions started fighting among each other, the warlords, until 1996, the Taliban, a Pakistani-influenced militia group, took over the Kabul. So the Afghan Taliban rule ended in 2001. And a result of Al-Qaeda attacks 9/11, the America-led NATO forces the invasion of Afghanistan. And after the Bonn conference, Pashtun nationalists they were promised that let's go back to your country. We are going to clean the mess and let's take over the Afghanistan back. We are going to bring democracy to you. And for 20 years, or more than 2 decades, the Pashtuns fought against the Taliban, or these militants who were brought from around the world and were recruited inside Pakistan and Afghanistan. And then it is estimated that 500,000 Afghans were killed during the Soviet-Afghan War between 1979 and 1980. The case of Pashtuns differs somewhat from other nations. So if we look at, because we have different national movements, the year 2018 and from year 2018 onwards, we see the rise of ethno-nationalism in Pakistan. We see the Kashmiri nationalism. We see the Baloch nationalism there on the rise. Even we see the nationalists rising in Gilgit-Baltistan. There are more than 15 Sindhi nationalist movements. But the case of Pashtuns is somewhat different from other nationalities or the nationalist resistance movements. They have been struggling for their rights and provincial autonomy inside Pakistan, but democracy has always been a dream in Pakistan. On the other side of the Durand line, Pashtuns sided with the socialists in Afghanistan, but the Western allies imposed religious fanatics on them. Pashtuns sided with the socialists and the Soviets against imperialism, but they lost the war in Afghanistan. Pashtuns on this side of the Durand line had good relations with India because of the giant struggle for the freedom of Indian subcontinent and a common enemy, the British. But after the partition of India, an arch rivalry between India and Pakistan, they couldn't benefit from the historic relations and became traitors in the eyes of Pakistan. They sided with the Indian National Congress, but were thrown to the walls. In these decades-long proxy wars on their lands, the Pashtun across the Durand Line have been robbed of their power, uh, resources, glory, state, and autonomy, and their fundamental right to life. They have been killed in hundreds of thousands, displaced, and made refugees in millions during the last 4 decades of proxy wars on their lands. They have been killed more than any other nation around the world after World War II, have suffered more than the Kashmiris and the Baloch, displaced more in number than Palestinians, and is probably the most marginalized nation compared to any other nations around the world. Yet this God-forsaken nation is the victim of profiling and level of terrorism and extremism. Today, being sick and tired of proxy wars on their lands, the Pashtuns are struggling for life, peace, and their fundamental human rights amid new forms of violence and necropolitics on their lands. The birth of Pashtun Tahafuz movement is a glimpse of their desperation, longing for peace. The Pashtun Tahafuz movement has presented the case of Pashtuns before the state of Pakistan and rest of the world in a strong and vivid manner, calling for a new social contract, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, an end to the oppression, occupation, proxy wars on their lands, exploitation of their resources, and violation of their fundamental human rights. It has explicitly stated that Pashtuns would no longer accept any further proxy wars on their soil, any strategic policies of Pakistan and its Western masters, being second-class citizen in the state of Pakistan, and would leave no stone unturned to unite the nation for a common cause. So the Pashtun Tahafuz movement is a human rights and anti-war social movement inspiring global solidarity that was founded in 2018 along after the Long March gatherings, which resulted uh, after the brutal murder of one of the internally displaced uh, person from Waziristan who was killed in a staged encounter by Ravanwar by the Karachi police. Uh, so it's the PTM is basically, it lacks a distinct organizational structure. It is a loosely structured like any other social movement, and but has nevertheless succeeded in circumventing state censorship through the all-pervasive use of social media platforms, online activism to mobilize for collective action to address Pashtun grievances. Well, there have been so many achievements of PTM because it's a 6-year-old child, but PTM has made tremendous, achievements and has achieved a lot of milestones. I'm just trying to summarize what Pashtun Tahafuz movement has achieved so far. I just wanted to give you the context of where did this movement, social movement, has come from. So these were the last 300 years of sufferings of the Pashtuns, especially the people who are living across the Durand Line on both sides, like in the federally administered tribal areas, and on the other side in Afghanistan, and these Anglo-Afghan wars, and then proxy wars, and then Pakistani strategic depth policies. So this is what gave birth actually, and the military operations. There have been more than 13 military operations in Pakhtunkhwa since 2011, 2001. In the last 2 decades, there have been more than 13 military operations, small and big. And now the Pashtuns are sick of these military operations because there have been so many atrocities in these military operations. And now the Pashtuns have unanimously rejected the new military operation called Azm-e-Istehkam that was proposed by the Pakistani state. So what were the reasons? You will find the glimpses of this agitation, this resistance, and this clarity and the achievements of PTM. What PTM has achieved after 2018 so far, they have broken the spiral of silence and have become the voice of the voiceless. Before PTM, the other mainstream political parties, including the nationalist parties, couldn't voice or couldn't translate the suffering or the miseries of the people who were actually going through hell during the war on terror. So it was the first people. There were 35 students, 35 boys, 35 youngsters, 30 to 35 youngsters. They came together. They marched towards Islamabad, and this is how this movement came into being. And then they started narrating their stories. And from 2018 till they are telling the stories throughout the world on the social media, inside Pakistan, in Afghanistan, around the globe, and international on the international fronts. They are telling the stories of their misery and their human rights violations. The second achievement of the PTM was the rebirth or the renaissance of Pashtun nationalism or the nationalist movement. Well, there have been so many, like from Khushal Khan Khattak, who fought the Mughals, uh, uh, who was the father of Pashtun nationalism, uh, from Ahmad Shah Durrani to modern heroes, Fakir AP, the people who fought with the British against the colonials with the guns, and the non-violent soldiers of so the non-violent soldier of Pashtun, Bachha Khan. So, if we put it simplistically, there have been three major, an oversimplistic representation of three social movements we see was the Roshnai movement of Pir Rohan or Bayezid Ansari. It was the first movement that actually unified the Pashtuns across the Durand line. On the others, the next social movement that actually reformed or reformist movement was the Servants of God or Khudai Khidmatgah that was started by Bacha Khan in 1929. And he was also a member of the Congress who actually transformed the Pashtun society. And it was also the renaissance of the Pashtun nationalism. And after Bacha Khan, Khudai Khidmatgar, it is the Pashtun nationalist movement, the Pashtun Tahafuz movement, which is a grassroots movement, and it's actually changing the very narratives of the politics and the social fabric within the Pashtun society across the Durand line and among the diasporic Pashtun community. So this is the renaissance of Pashtun nationalism. The third achievement of Pashtun the Pashtun Tahafuz movement or Pashtun protection movement is it highlighted the miseries of the landmines. So because there were so many military operations, there's a lot of landmines there in the federally administered tribal areas. So it was one of the demands of the Pashtuns to clear all these mines, because when Pashtuns they became IDPs, they became internally displaced in millions. They were forced out of their homes. When they were going back to Waziristan and all these areas, they were told that the areas have been cleared by the military. But when they went back, their kids and the children, while playing, they used to be blown. They used to blow up in the lane mines. So it was one of the demands that every other day Pashtuns are killed in these lane mines, so they should be cleared. The other thing was the target killing, which is a strategy for the different proxy wars. So Pashtuns have been killed in the proxy wars in thousands, and this is what they highlighted before the Pashtun Tahfuz movement. Nobody even spoke about the target killings that was happening in these areas. The third thing was the human rights, gross human rights violation, which is very common between Pashtuns and the Baloch, is the enforced disappearances. While interviewing one of the leaders of the Pashtun for my PhD thesis, he told me that he himself has compiled the data of more than 4,000 Pashtun missing persons that have been disappeared and forced disappear by the military. And yeah, there is a commission in Pakistan which has heard more than 4,000 cases of the enforced disappearances from the whole country. But the human rights groups say that the number is much more than what is being told by the state of Pakistan. The other aspect they highlighted was the internal displacement, which I have mentioned before, that they have been displaced in millions, like more than uh, 3 million Pashtuns have been internally displaced due to these proxy wars and these military operations. So this is what they have actually highlighted. Circumventing the state censorship using digital media technologies. Well, Pashtuns don't have a media. Like in Pakistan, we have the 88 TV channels. We have 200, around 200 radio stations. We have 473 newspapers, including weeklies and dailies. But Pashtuns have only 3 newspapers. They have only 2 news channels, and one of them is, but the ownership or the owners of those channels are not Pashtuns. So they make up 18% of the Pakistani population. Like Baloch are 6%, and one of the biggest province of Pashtun of Pakistan, but they have only 1 newspaper. So because Pashtuns don't have their own media, so they, because of this mushroom growth of the digital media technologies, they turn onto the social media and they build up a moment. Another achievement was making the state of Pakistan responsible inside and outside the world. So before it was the Pashtuns who were being blamed by the state of Pakistan around the media. It was very easy to blame or to label them as extremists, terrorists, warriors, and sometimes angry young men, or the kind of labels that were are very Gairatmand, or sometimes when they used needed them to send them to Kashmir to fight against India, or to recruit them for the proxy wars in Afghanistan. But after the digital media came, they actually changed the very narrative, and they started making Pakistan responsible for the policies. It was the Pashtun Tahafuz movement. It changed the whole narrative of the state of Pakistan and made the state responsible, that it is your policies, it is you that you are fighting the proxy wars on our land. It was you that brought Osama bin Laden and all these proxies to our lands. It was not Pashtuns who were actually communicated with these Uzbek, Chechen, Tajik, or the Arabs. They didn't know even on where Chechnya is on the map of the world, but it was your policies and the Western allies and your sponsorship and facilitation. So they actually, the Pashtun Tahfuz movement has achieved what it has achieved so far, that it shifted the blame from Pashtuns towards the state and the rest of the world. The second, another achievement was challenging Pakistan's policies of proxy wars, because Pakistan has a strategic depth policy. They have been using the Pashtun links for you know, their to make dollars and to fight those proxy wars, because as a contractor, Pakistan has always been fighting those wars for the sake of dollars, and without thinking about the impact of these wars, which are now openly coming out, that what these wars have done to the people. So the proxy wars on Pashtun lands have been challenged by the Pashtun Tahafuz movement. To quote a few examples, like the Pashtuns lands have been the strategic depth not only for Pakistan but also for the rest of the world, for the CIA, for everything, everyone around the world. They brought these proxies, the Arabs and the Chechen, the Uzbeks, to Afghanistan. Pakistan brought all these, which Tilak has mentioned, these 3 people who were recruited during the 70s by the Bhutto regime and then sent back to Afghanistan to throw acids on the women's faces and start a kind of extremist and Islamist narrative or struggle just to be a proxy of Pakistan. So yeah, this is another. And also, whenever you saw the surgical strike that recently happened a few years back by the India, so they hit Mansehra, Pakhtunkhwa. So it's the Pakistan who are bringing all these camps to Mansehra, to Pakhtunkhwa. Osama bin Laden, he was actually taken out from Abbottabad. So he was not in Lahore. He was brought. He was kept in, in Abbottabad. So whenever the Western media found out, oh, he wasn't there. So all these from Abdullah Izam to Osama bin Laden, all these Arabs, they were kept in Peshawar, in Hayatabad, Kulbani, Nekmatia. So this is how they have chosen this whole land of Pashtuns and even when Indian aeroplane, it was hijacked, it was landed in Kandahar, not in Lahore. When Masood Azhar, the leader of Jaish-e-Mohammed, and Mushtaq Zargar, others were, released from prison by hijacking the plane. So it is the Pashtuns, like India and Pakistan, are fighting their proxy wars, but Pakistan has chosen Afghanistan and Pakhtunkhwa, so the Pashtun area for this proxy war. So now Pashtuns have been challenging these wars on this side of the Duran line, and this is what Pashtun Tahfuz movement is standing for. Challenging the Pashtun profiling in the media ideological apparatus. It is one of the major issues, because most of the people, they have been illusioned by the excessive propaganda against Pashtuns for decades, from the Western authors to the local authors, from Pakistani media to the international media. There have been Pashtun profiling. In Pakistani media or the ideological state apparatus, from syllabus to media, from movies to national anthems, from ISPR songs, the Pashtun attire, their language have been they're portrayed as terrorist or extremist. So the Pashtun have been actually trying to dispel these illusions against Pashtuns, and that's why they're standing up for the rights of the people, and this is what they have achieved so far, and the struggle for and the resistance goes on. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if I've taken a little longer, but just wanted to bring into the context everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Zia, for your insightful exploration of PTM Tahafuz movement and its achievement, and about the Pashtun history and political struggle, and the Bacha Khan Baba's legacy. Your research on the role of social media is circumventing the state censorship, especially relevant in our struggle. It's inspiring to see how our movement is evolving and adapting in the digital age, continuing Bacha Khan Baba's mission of nonviolence and resistance. So thank you. I would also like to say that we have also badly exposed the Pakistan internationally, and we have also through PTM struggle proved to the world that Pakistan, that the Shadgard is not the Pashtun, and they are not with the long beard and turban. They are in the uniform, and they are the terrorists, and it's proven and badly exposed worldwide. So if anybody have any, we have also, I don't know if anybody shed light on the 11 October National Jirga. We have on 11 October where we will decide the future of the Pashtun people. So I hope the world will watch it and support us in our struggle for peace and to fight against the terrorist regime of Pakistan. So now, if anybody have a question, please feel free to ask. So yes.
Which has been directed towards you is, how can the Pashto movement be enjoined with Baloch and Sindhi voices to create a situation of higher concern for the Pak Army?
Yeah, it's a very important question, and PTM is really, informed and giving great attention to having collaboration and cooperation with other, movements and groups which are living in Pakistan, particularly at the United Nations. We have very close cooperation with our friends, with our Baloch brothers and Sindhis, and even the Kashmiri. We organize joint protests, and even inside the United Nations, we organize side events and conferences. And it's on the credit of Pashtun Tahafuz movement that last year we organized a joint, conference of all the oppressed nations in Pakistan, like Sindhis, Kashmiris, and Balochs, including Pashtuns. And we issued a joint declaration, for our struggle, for our aspirations, our demands, and what our future strategy will be. The same is happening on the ground. Manzoor Pashtun is giving real importance to cooperation with other oppressed nations. And wherever there is a possibility, like, the recent marches of Mahrang Baloch in Balochistan, and when she was, heading towards Islamabad, it was the Pashtun protection movement which participated in huge numbers with them. Usually, Baloch men are a little bit, afraid of participating in such events. So it was Pashtun Protection Movement which participated in these marches, and even now they are participating with our Baloch brothers. And wherever there is a conference, there is a meeting, we participate with all and show our solidarity with other ethnic minorities, and hopefully it will go a long way, in future, for further cooperation and a joint strategy for our struggle or our right to self-determination. Hopefully, we are focusing on it, we are aware of it, and we are further working on it. Thank you very much.
So there is another question. It goes that you have mentioned about the Punjabi colonialism. So what role does ethnicity play in determining perception of minorities in Pakistan?
Yeah, as our friend Ziaullah has discussed, I'm really impressed by his work. He has been, working on Pashtun Tahafuz movement, and he has discussed different aspects of Pashtun Tahafuz movement. The profiling, as he has discussed, there has been the profiling of the not only Pashtuns but other ethnic minorities living in Pakistan also. And the Punjabis are the only, largest group who are more than 50% in Pakistan. And they are controlling almost everything, the bureaucracy, the military, the media, all the important, strategic aspects of Pakistan. So I think, as you know, Pakistan is an artificial state. It's not a nation. It has different nations have been forcibly put together to make this country, and all that it was for the strategic interest of colonial powers, for Britishers, and then the Americans took all the matters into their hands. So the things are not going well, and for that reason, the Pashtuns, particularly, I will talk about the Pashtun. They have been, kept in really difficult conditions. Their industry has been destroyed by the Punjabis. The law and order situation was created. There's completely unemployment, and whatever natural resources are there, they are exploited, as Ziaullah has discussed, that by the Punjabis, the center, which is called now Pakistan. I'll call it Punjabistan because the Punjabis are controlling everything. So for all these proxies war, when there is no employment in a region, when you are kept uneducated, when you are profiled, when there is no education, and no resources, you are a very easy target for proxies war. For other wars, we have been used by the Pakistani state, because Pakistan is a rent state. It's working for the international powers against other countries. And now, in another factor which we can see, is the China, which will again, these operations that they have announced as Azme Istihkam. It's again, the repeat of the Cold War, I think, and now it will be against China, and they are further, terrorizing the people and creating militancy into our region to use Pashtun people against another power by international powers, but Pakistan will be using it. So I think Pashtuns are the main factor, in this context, and the Punjabis have been using Pashtuns against others. But as thanks to the Pashtun protection movement, we have, been actively countering the propaganda and the narrative of the state of Pakistan. not only informing the Pashtun people about their designs and the international community also. So this time, I think it will be a different situation. Thank you.
The next question is to Zia-Ullah Hamdard, sir. So Pashtuns are one of those communities who have suffered but not being talked about in the mainstream. What can be the reasons and what future do we see for Pashtuns in the mainstream?
Well, thank you very much. I think I've referred to this issue in my presentation, that Pashtuns don't own media in Pakistan. There are a lot of Pashtun journalists who are working in different media organizations, but the control or the policies, they are made by the Punjabi military, the bureaucracy, and the Punjabi, politicians. In parliament, if you look at the proportion of different nations that comprise Pakistan, Pakistan is not a nation, it's a state that was comprised of multiplicity of nations. So like the Baloch, who are 6%, Pashtuns, who are 18%, like Punjabi, who are more than 50%, and there are other smaller groups or nations which are less in number, but they are all equal citizens. Unfortunately, the problem with the state, when after the emergence of Pakistan started, was this question of unity. That's why the Bengali said our language should also be included in the national languages. But it was the very founder who refused it. No, Urdu will be. So they were imposing, a foreign language on the Bengalis, on the Pashtuns, and everyone else. And since then, we have this issue of, kind of division. And a lot of nationalities or nations living in Pakistan have the same, problem. Now, coming to the question of why the Pashtuns are misrepresented, I mentioned in my print, there are so many factors because the Pashtuns have not been the strategic depth policy for Pakistan, like Afghans. But the Afghans were, Sir Tilak has mentioned in the Pashtun uncontested history, the various expeditions that happened in, between 1849 and 1890, 42 expeditions. Now imagine the British fighting, the colonials fighting 42 expeditions in the barren lands of Khyber and, in Waziristan, in all these areas. What would they write about Pashtuns? While the rest in Punjab, there is total peace. In India, after the war of independence or whatever they call it the treason. So the only resistance that was coming was from the Pashtun belt bordering, the Pashtun belt across the border, Duran line, sorry. So that is the reason, like the British, they started writing against, they called, the British came to our lands and they called our people traitors. They termed Gandhi traitor, they termed Bachha as traitor. But luckily, India got independence, but Pashtuns didn't. So the colonial legacy was continued, the same colonial legacy, the same mindset, they took over control. So we were actually taken over by from the white, we call it white Angrez, or from Gore se leke hum kalon ki taraf aa gaye. Now they got the stake, but they pursued the same policies and they were profiling, engaged in profiling of Pashtun in the syllabus. I've attended seminars and have a lot of research on how Pashtuns have been represented in the textbooks. Whenever they were needed, they were like against India, they would use the They are Gairatman people. They are the brave people. They are not afraid of India. And but whenever they were, they needed dollars to fight the proxy war, they were labeled as terrorist, extremist, and Islamist. This is another thing, like to which I've read Sir Tilak's book, but one thing that he mentioned in his in his lecture or in his talk was Afghans are Taliban or nationalists. No, this is what I will beg to differ, because most of the media and the Western media and even the Indian media and most of the intellectuals, they are telling that Taliban are nationalists. Taliban are proxies. They are Islamists. They are anti-nationalists. They have been anti-nationalists. They have been killing Pashtun nationalists. They have labeled, all Pashtun nationalists as kafirs, infidels, fighting, killing them. Even in the last 2 decades, the Taliban were fighting with the nation. They were killing the Afghan military, the Afghan politicians. They changed when they were imposed on Pakistan by Pakistan during 1996 to 2001. They changed the very, language, the very, the very fabric, social fabric, the state institutions. They transformed it from the nationalist designs to the Islamist designs. Even after the fall of Kabul in 2 years back, when the Taliban took over, they changed the national flag of Afghanistan. They made, that on the radio, on the television, you see all these mullahs. So we can't consider them as, as nationalists. So there are a list of, a lot list of, and a lot of, research, which we can arrange, a whole seminar on this, why Pashtuns are being misrepresented by the state, by the international media. So it's because we are the victims of the proxy wars, because we don't have our own media, because we are not left alone by the rest of the world, because we are being represented by someone else instead of us. So that's the reason. Thank you.
Can I make an intervention?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So I respect what Zia had said. What I mean to say that the Taliban are nationalists, that their vision or their goal is Afghanistan. They have a different ideology. They don't agree with people's different ideologies, and whom they don't agree with, they use very brutal tactics. But they are not, let's say, for example, like the Al Qaeda. That's the differences with Al Qaeda is who have a pan global ideology. The Taliban will confine themselves to Afghanistan, and therefore I consider them to be nationalist within the borders of Afghanistan. They're not going to go out capturing, Tajikistan or Uzbekistan. That's not the thing. But in Afghanistan, if there are people who don't agree with their ideologies of Islamism, the kind of Islam that they are preaching, yes, they will certainly attack them. That's my point about their being nationalist and not internationalist. Similarly with the TTP.
Yes, Ziaullah, sir.
Yeah, well, when Sir Tilak, I understood what he meant by nationalist. He meant the religious nationalist. So it's a kind of, Pakistan is also a religious nationalist when it comes to the ideology. Like, it was founded on the religious nationalism. But Pakistan, the very ideology of, Pakistan is against Baloch nationalism, Bengali nationalism, Pashtun nationalism. So that's why there is a misconception. I understand what Sir Tilak is saying. They're not international. They were internationalists before, when they were being used, because they were actually fighting alongside Osama bin Laden. So all these, they were made these limited to Afghanistan by the Doha deal. When the Americans struck a deal with them, they told them, you are gonna rule Afghanistan, but you should stop your internationalist designs. So they were restricted. But there is a general perception among intellectuals, academia, and even in the UN, they are calling the Taliban as Pashtun nationalists, and they're, whatever the Taliban are doing, like in the international media and international organizations, they are telling the world that it is the Pashtun nationalists. For example, one, they have banned the girls' education. So one of the representatives of Pakistan, he told the UN that it is the Pashtun culture not to send their children, especially the female, their girls, to the schools. No, it is not the Pashtun culture. It is not Pashtun nationalism. So that's what's very important point. I understand the context you are telling. I agree with you. They are now limited to Afghanistan, but it is an anti-Pashtun, anti-nationalist, and anti-Afghan nationalist project. Now, one of my friends, he was in America. He is also a PhD scholar. He has completed his research. He has written a paper on Pakistanization of Pashtuns. Now, the Taliban are actually changing, and they are trying to Pakistanize Afghanistan. And they are changing the syllabus, the media. So if you follow closely, you will find out that they are not even Afghan nationalists. They have the proxies of Pakistan they have taken over, and they are changing the very fabric or the very ideology of the state of Afghanistan. So that's what I wanted to mention and to bring into the notice. So once you read more about it, probably we will reach an agreement. But I respect your opinion up to date, Con, and I agree with you that they are a religious nationalist group at this time. but ideologically they were not, historically they were not, and their actions are not.
See, we can continue arguing on this, but I think we'll be getting diverted from the main subject. So let's rest the argument here, and maybe we can take it up some other time.
The next question is also towards Ziaullah sir. Former PM Imran Khan compared 1971 genocide of Bengalis with what is happening with the Pashtuns today. Manzoor Pashtun recently warned Pakistan Army of not repeating 1971 with Pashtuns. Do we think that Pakistan has the same future of a civil unrest in the near time being?
Well, it's a prediction. I don't make prediction because being a student of media and research, we don't make prediction. But what we already see in Pakistan, there is a total unrest. There is civil unrest going on. It's not the Baloch, it's not the Pashtuns, it's the state policies that is forcing this unrest. It was not the Bengalis who rebelled against Pakistan. It was the Pakistan that forced him, its policies that forced him to rebel against him. Now we see, like the Baloch, they are demanding freedom. The Pashtuns have not even, the Pashtun Tahafuz movement or the Pashtun nationalists, as far I know, they have not even reached that conclusion that they want, an independent state of their own. But the way the things are progressing, we, I don't know, but probably in the near future, they might start thinking. Even we have listened to Manzoor Pashtun, some of his speeches, and he said probably we cannot get along each other because the last 7 decades prove it. As far Imran Khan is concerned, well, Imran Khan is a politician and he has been pursuing the state policies, though he had an opinion, a very strong opinion. They don't fight your own people, don't fight proxy wars in the beginning. And he had a very clear policy. He understood what happened in Bengal and what was going on in Balochistan and what's going in Pakhtunkhwa. But when he became the prime minister, so he didn't change anything because he didn't have any powers. So politicians in this country, they don't make policies. The state is owned by the military, and that's why we see all this mess. So I think we should not take the statements of the politicians who are in power, even Nawaz Sharif, seriously, because Nawaz Sharif was fighting when he was having those dialogues with BJP's leader. I think I forgot his name, the prime minister. So at that time, the Kargil was happening. So these are different policies, but we don't take Imran Khan or any other politicians who is a mainstream Pakistani politician seriously. Even the Bhutto, left-leaning socialist, so-called, an Islamist, a mix of everything, he actually pursued the policies, of recruiting all these Gulbadins and Rabbanis and Muhammad Shah Massoud, brought them into Pakistan. And, the Benazir Bhutto, General Nasirullah Baba, he pursued this Talibanization policy. So for us, for Pashtuns, for the Baloch, for the nationalists, they're all the same.
Rehman sir.
Hello, can you listen to me? Yeah.
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, I would like to disagree with Ziaullah on this question of Imran Khan. We don't believe Imran Khan, but we believe his statement. From the past experience, we can see that in the last, operation, few operations, maybe 12 or 13 operations that have been conducted in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, particularly in ex-FATA, the Pakistani military used jet bombers, heavy artillery, and gunship helicopters, which resulted in the killing of more than 80,000 Pashtun people. So I think the genocide of Pashtun is continuing. It's already been done, 80,000 is not a small number, And if we see the Afghan war in the last 40 years, most of the blood of the Afghan people is on the hands of the Pakistani military. So I think the genocide is already happening. We say that more than 30,000 Pashtuns have been forcibly disappeared by Pakistani state. So what we call a genocide, I think how we can, make a criteria for a genocide. So for me, it's already a genocide, and in case Pakistan is further weakened, I think there is a possibility that an all-out genocide of Pashtuns, Balochs, and other ethnic minorities will happen, because we have the experience of Bengal, and we have these experiences of the last 13 operations. We have the experience of the Baloch people. So I think it is imminent, and in case Pakistan is further weakened, there is a huge military. I think it will not let the things, go away from the control of this military. So I think there is a possibility of further genocide. I'll call it, there's already, this genocide is happening, but there is a further, increase in these killings. So I think it's imminent, and the international community, particularly the regional powers, should focus on it, and should stop Pakistan from, making another genocide in the region. Thank
I'll move on to the next question. It is to Tilak Devasher, sir. Given the civilizational links between India and Pashtuns, do we think that Pashtuns should build a long-term relationship with India, or would it be counterproductive for Pashtuns? What should be an ideal approach for Indian decision makers?
You see, the civilizational links between the Pashtuns and India goes back millennia. In the Battle of Mahabharat, Gandhari, it actually came from Peshawar. Then during the time of Ashoka and Chandragupta Maurya, Buddhism, which made its way to China, came through Afghanistan and went all the way to China, thanks to the efforts of Ashoka, Mauryas, and then you had Kanishk, and. So there is a civilization links between the Pashtuns and India is very, very strong, very deep rooted, and it has to be built on. Yes, there are ups and downs. There have been ups and downs. But that is, if you look at the overview, look at the long-term picture, I think it benefits both. It benefits the Pashtuns, it benefits India. The kind of, in fact, I had met somebody who was researching on Pashtun, and he told me that the largest repository of Pashtun, original Pashtun documents, is in India. In not so much in the museums, but in private collections. There have been Pashtun kingdoms apart from the three dynasties, Sultanate in Delhi, in Bhopal, in Farrukhabad, in other places, and that which continue. There's a strong Pashtun presence. So there is no, it's a no-brainer. There's this links between India and the Pashtuns are deep-rooted, are long-standing civilizational, and benefit both Pashtuns and benefit India too.
So there is another question. It goes, historically, the Turkic Shia Kizilbash have been treated as outsiders or anti-Pashtun. Will there be anti-Shia riots as well? In your assessment, sir, how is the current Taliban working with their Turkic Shia minority?
You see, the Kizilbash, again, historical, were largely, were very strong around Kabul. And Ahmad Shah Abdali's son, Timur Shah, if I'm not mistaken, when he shifted his capital to Kabul, used the Kizilbash as his protection force. Now, this venom of Shia Sunni differences and attacking not only the Kizilbash but more the Hazaras in Afghanistan is a relatively recent phenomenon. In fact, the massacres of the Hazara Shias was carried out by one of the Peshawar 7 parties, a Pashtun party, a small group which is very uh, radical. And I think it is the Islamic State, really, which is very, very anti-Shia. And just to burnish their Islamic credentials, every now and then they will attack a Shia procession, Shia mosque, and things. So it is a cleavage in Islam itself, Shia Sunni differences. A lot of people play that up. Many times people don't play it up. I mean, at the larger level, the whole problem between Iran and Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf states is because of the Shia Sunni split. I don't think the Taliban have also carried it out, have also indulged in it, but I don't think that as a policy, right now what the Taliban are trying to do is establish peace and control in Afghanistan. I don't see them deliberately targeting the Shias, Hazaras or Kizilbash or whatever, but the ISKP will continue to do that, in whether it's in Afghanistan or in Pakistan, in both these places. But it is a cleavage, it is a fault line in Islam, and it can be activated at very, very quick notice. Recently in Prachina, you would have heard, or in those who follow Pakistan, there was this sectarian violence where almost 300 Shias were killed. Very recently, this just happened in the month of July.
The next question is to Fazal or Rehman sir. Given that USA backed Pakistan in 1971 war and during the war in Afghanistan, it can be said that genocide on Pashtuns and Bengalis were supported by the Americans. How do Pashtuns plan to tackle the challenge of Americans who have backed the military regime in Pakistan for their geopolitical interests?
Yes, it's a very complicated question. For us, it's important, the Pakistan which is rented, because we are living with the Pakistani army, we are living with Pakistan. So it's important for us that it's Pakistan which is responsible for the genocide of the Pashtun people. It's Pakistan. Normally, recently you would have heard of the government which was toppled, the Imran Khan government, which was toppled by General Bajwa. So it was Pakistan that presented to United States a project of changing the regime. So then these generals twist the information for their own interest, because they are interested in American dollars. So they twist a situation in their favor in the region. For example, Pakistan for the war on terror, it presented a project to the United States that we are going to eliminate the terrorists and Taliban from the region, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and ex-Fatah. So the Americans financed them. It's a reality. But actually, you would be astonished to know that not a single prominent Taliban leader or Al Qaeda leader was killed in those operations. On the other hand, the as I have already said, that F-16 jet bombers and heavy artillery and gunship helicopters were used by the Pakistani military against innocent people. Innocent people were killed to justify that war and to earn more than $32 billion from the United States of America. So I think they have been double gaming the international community. The Pakistani military has been double gaming the international community, particularly the United States of America, and even Americans recognize that. So I think we blame the Pakistani military, Pakistani state for the genocide of the Pashtun people. Only them, they are responsible for our genocide. The funds they have collected from the United States or the support, that's another thing. I think that's our fault, that we should connect with the international community. And now, as a Pashtun, we are now trying to connect with the international community, that we can be a reliable partner with the United States of America, with UK, and all the international community, rather than these Pakistani military generals. That's our point of view on that issue. We will not blame the international community. We will blame Pakistan first. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With this, we will be concluding the Q&A session. Sure. Lisa ma'am, please continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Samidha. I will ask all the speaker to give their concluding remarks before I will conclude. Yes,
Okay.
I think it's you. Sorry, yeah, you can be the first
Yeah.
speaker.
I'd like to say thank you very much for inviting me. This has been a very enlightening discussion, and I'm glad that a lot of work is going on to examine issues in depth. And I wish the PTM all the very best. I have a chapter on the PTM in my book. I found that organization amazing, the way it had come up and what Manzoor Pristine was able to do. You see, if you look at the long term, look at the overview, you have Manzoor Pristine talking about the same issues that Marang Baloch is talking about the Baloch. The book before the Pashtuns was on the Baloch. So, I am very sensitive to both the Baloch and the Pashtuns. I'm aware of the issues involved. So, I am very excited to see these two civil society movements. You see, the biggest problem for Pakistan Army is that they cannot deal with the civil society movement. The case of East Pakistan, Bangladesh shows they only have one template, which is to shoot their way out of trouble. And once they started shooting in East Pakistan, the Bangladesh was bound to be created. So these two civil society movements among the Baloch and among the Pashtuns is very exciting development in Pakistan. And though you may feel that Pakistan Army is too strong and this, actually in dealing with the civil society movement, they're very weak. So all strengths to you, all best wishes to you to continue with your work, to continue with your protests, because ultimately the Pakistan Army will not know how to deal with you. So
Thank
all
you,
the best.
sir. I hope you stay with us. I hope you stand together with us to raise our voice
Yeah,
for justice.
anytime, anytime.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I will give time to Mr. Afridi Sahab.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's very important. PTM has presented a narrative that the propaganda of the Pakistani military and Punjabi regime, has been countered, really effectively by PTM. That's the first thing, and we have, given a narrative to the international community that Pashtuns are the victim of terrorism. We are not terrorists. We have been used by the Pakistani state as a gun fodder for others' wars and in terrorism. So we are not responsible for terrorism. Pashtuns are very liberal people. We want democracy. We want, cooperation and partnership with the international community. We are not interested in wars. We are fed up with these wars imposed on the Pashtun people by international powers or the Pakistani regime. So that's my point of view. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rehman. I hope you continue our work for justice and continue to expose Pakistan state atrocity. And thank you for being with us. Now I will give time to Mr. Ziaullah Hamdard.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was indeed an honor to be part of such a discussion, which has intellectuals like Sir Tilak and all the friends, and especially the researchers. I'm thankful to the Indic Research Forum for organizing this activity and starting this initiative of Pashtun Security Dialogue. Just briefly about the civilizational aspect, this whole region, Afghanistan, Pakistan, this have been part of, Indus Valley civilization, but originally it was the Pashtun area, which was part of the Indus Valley civilization. So now there is a shift, a kind of another thing going on in the media, by the Punjabi academia, they're trying to rob us from that civilization as well. Like they're trying to build a narrative and push this civilization towards utter. So just to briefly, like the word Afghan or Apagan is a Western word from a Western word, which means, a brave man or a striking man or a resistance. So even the word Afghan it comes from that civilization that was given us to us by the Indians,
Questions.
the Westerns. So the point is, we have like Panini. I come from Swabi. Swabi is a district in Pakhtunkhwa, and there the Panini, who wrote the Sanskrit grammar. So my village name is Shivaji. So we have all the. I still have those houses before the partition. They're still there. The shops of the Hindus. They lived in my village, and even our grandmother and those elders, they tell us the stories of the kind of love that they had between the communities before the partition. Uh, After the partition, when there was massacre on both sides, so Bachha Khan, he made because the Congress was in the KP government, they made Hindu protection committees when they were saying a farewell to the people who are living Pakhtunkhwa to India. And only in the whole massacre where it is claimed that more than 1 million people were killed, only 400 people were killed from Pakhtunkhwa. And they too were killed when the train entered Atak. So those people, the Pashtuns, Hindus, they were taken out of the trains or killed. So, we have much in common from Bachha Khan. We have the legacy of Bachha Khan, who fought under the Gandhi, although he had a lot of complaints from Congress that you have thrown us to the walls. And that point has been true, to which I refer to my presentation. But India today, it's a power. It has a vibrant media. It has institutions. I have a lot of friends in JNU. They have been working and writing on the, Pashtun Tahafuz movement. A lot of professors from India. So I think these bonds are very crucial for us. We hope that like Pashtuns have been very friendly since last 100 years with Indians. We will continue with this relationship, and we hope this friendship will keep on and will go stronger. Thank you.
I would like to all our distinguished speakers for their profound contribution. Today's discussion has reinforced the critical need for global attention to the plight of the Pashtun across the Durand line, from the historical injustice to the ongoing struggle. It's clear that our cause is just and urgent. Let us continue to stand united, drawing strength from our shared history and legacy of our leaders. Together we can create a future where Pashtun voice is heard, respected, and acted upon. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Levsa ma'am. With this, we have come to the end of our inaugural Pashtun dialogue. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Tilak Devasher sir, Fazal Rehman Afridi sir, and Ullah Hamdard sir for being part of the inaugural dialogue and making this initiative successful. Stay tuned to our social media accounts to get more updates on the Pashtun Security Dialogue. The recording of this session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. The links to the channel is in the chat box. Once again, I, on behalf of Indic Researchers Forum, thank you all for joining this session. Thank you so much.